Next on the news, saying goodbye. People line up for blocks to give a final farewell to Bishop David O'Connell as a community mourns. A lasting legacy, the work Bishop O'Connell did to protect California's unborn babies. Working around the clock and getting sick, the new report that may explain why crews are getting sick from the hazardous train derailment in Ohio. And what the FAA is doing after one mishap after another at our nation's airports. I'm Ed Wilkinson in for Christine Persichetti. Currents News starts right now. You are looking at the Cathedral of Our Lady of Angels in downtown Los Angeles, where thousands are coming to pray for a beloved bishop whose life was cut tragically short. And inside the cathedral, mourners are paying their respects to the prelate who was murdered in his home almost 2 weeks ago. It's all in preparation for tomorrow's funeral mass. Those who knew the bishop and those who knew of him are mourning his loss, still waiting for answers on why the husband of his housekeeper murdered him. Our team coverage begins with Currents News' Jessica Easthope outside the cathedral in downtown Los Angeles. Jessica?
Ed, thousands of people have been coming here today to pay their respects to Bishop David O'Connell. He was a presence both physically and spiritually for so many here in the Archdiocese of Los Angeles. People say he was always there for the marginalized, for parishioners and his friends, and now they are here for him.
He was just a man of peace, he was another Jesus Christ.
Sister Maria Goretti Crowley knew Bishop David O'Connell for decades, from the very start of his priesthood to his last days. His life was busy, but he remained a selfless servant of God and a good friend.
He would give you the shirt off his back. He put his hand in his pocket and paid so many bills for people and rent.
Sister Maria, among the thousands who paid their respects to Bishop Dave at the Cathedral of Our Lady of the Angels, many owe him a debt of gratitude. Christina and Frank Ortiz said Bishop Dave was the person they looked to for comfort when their son was suddenly paralyzed from the neck down.
He prayed over my son. And I believe those prayers worked because he was paralyzed from the neck down, but now, I mean, he does use crutches, but still, comparing to where he was at to now, I mean, his life is good. We've been so blessed.
These people pray he's at peace, but they're not. Those who mourn Bishop O'Connell still wonder why anyone, let alone someone who knew him, would take his life so violently.
Exactly, it's a mystery. We don't know. We just have to wait and see what the outcome is.
Bishop David O'Connell will be laid to rest here at the Cathedral of Our Lady of the Angels in a mausoleum beneath the cathedral tomorrow after his funeral mass. Ed?
Jess, it seems like so many people have personal stories about Bishop Dave. Can you tell us what you're hearing about him?
Yeah, Ed, everyone from longtime friends to parishioners to family members, they all have known him during several different stages of his life in priesthood, but they all say the same thing, that he was the most giving and selfless person that they have ever met, and that he was able most of all to help people form connections with their faith.
Jess, what can we expect after the public viewing for the rest of these days of mourning in Los Angeles?
Yeah, so there will be another public viewing, another session that has actually already just started today, and then there will be Mass here tonight at the Cathedral of Our Lady of the Angels. Archbishop Jose Gomez will be celebrating that Mass, and tomorrow is Bishop O'Connell's funeral Mass. It's invitation only, but the cathedral can hold 3,500 people, and people who work for the Archdiocese of Los Angeles say they're expecting that many people, and they actually, just to the left of me, have started to set up chairs for overflow in the plaza.
Okay, thank you, Jessica. We'll check back in with you later.
Thanks, Ed.
While Bishop O'Connell may be gone, the work he has done for the people of Los Angeles will be his lasting legacy. Whether it be the poor or the immigrant community, Bishop Dave touched the lives of many. But what many are remembering tonight is his work for those who don't have a voice, the unborn babies. Currents News' Michelle Powers continues our coverage from Los Angeles.
Ed, he wasn't only a priest, he was a man of the people. He made himself available to anyone, even those he never met. Going to a cemetery is never easy. Catherine Contreras knows that all too well.
Holy Mary, Mother of God.
She doesn't go to Oddfellow Cemetery in Boyle Heights to visit anyone she knew, but to pray for those she never will.
Now and at the hour of our death. Amen.
They're buried here, 16,500, in one grave. Their heartbeat, yet they never took their first breath.
Some of the babies that are buried here are over 5 pounds when they were discovered. And when I think about it personally, I was born at 5 pounds 6 ounces.
Back in 1985, their remains were found, but according to some statistics, 422 abortions happen every day in California. Believing that her state was becoming the abortion capital of the West Coast, Catherine founded Vox Vitae, an organization that focuses on fostering life. But today she's not only mourning those beneath her, but someone who used to stand right beside her.
He was always like, quick, yes, like, what do you need? Yes, I'll be there.
She's talking about Los Angeles Auxiliary Bishop David O'Connell. He came here to pray before he was murdered. He used to join these guys in prayer too, outside a Planned Parenthood in El Monte. In fact, he was all over the streets of Los Angeles.
We felt the difference. Even people that were here, we were all feeling this tension. And then after he finished with the prayers, we felt like this big load get off our chest.
Despite protesters, jeers, and sometimes even curses, Bishop O'Connell stood by these people, believing that even if they could save one life, it was worth it.
His yes was for the unborn, was for the mothers, was for everyone, was for the drug addict, was for the prostitute, was for the immigrant, was for everyone.
Catherine believes the smallest among us have lost a giant. But David O'Connell left behind an example, and that cannot die. If there's one thing they have left to say to their beloved bishop, it's this: they'll take it from here.
Thank you. Thank you for your support. Thank you for your prayers. Thank you for your fatherly warmth and giving of us so selflessly.
The thank yous to Bishop O'Connell are endless. Everyone was choking up when I asked them if they had the chance, what would they say to him for one last time? They'll never get the chance to do that, but tomorrow they will say their final goodbyes. In Los Angeles, Michelle Powers, Currents News.
Prayers for Bishop O'Connell are pouring in from around the world. Archbishop Jose Gomez of Los Angeles read out Pope Francis' condolences last night. The Holy Father marking Bishop O'Connell's profound concern for the poor, immigrants, and those in need. The Pontiff also sent a message to those who are honoring his memory, asking that they reject the ways of violence and overcome evil with good. Tonight there will be a vigil mass for Bishop O'Connell at the Cathedral of Our Lady of Angels. That will happen at 10 p.m. Eastern, and the Cathedral is live streaming the event. Just go to olacathedral.org for information. As Jessica mentioned, Bishop O'Connell's funeral mass will be Friday, March 3rd at 2 p.m. Eastern. And Currents News will be streaming that mass live. Just tune into currentsny.tv. That's tomorrow at 2 p.m. Eastern. And stay with Currents News for more coverage of the life of Bishop O'Connell. Coming up, Jessica Easthope will join us again, and she has an exclusive interview with one of Bishop O'Connell's close friends. That's just minutes away. Developing news about the toxic train derailment in East Palestine, Ohio. Crews that are working around the clock to clean up the disaster are getting sick, and a new NTSB report may highlight even more problems. Mike Valero has more.
In the middle of this toxic cleanup, railroad union leaders say their workers are operating here with no PPE.
I've been out there a dozen times. Nobody's wearing protective equipment. I've asked 3 or 4 times. It's really alarming.
Michael Rulli represents East Palestine in the Ohio State Senate. He also lives near the derailment.
Some people that live near the rail actually are suffering from rashes and some discoloration in the skin. So it's a very real thing, and the workers there need to be protected.
Friday marks 1 month since the disaster, and the uncertainty about how lives can continue is palpable.
I have a part ownership in a farm, So I'm concerned about that, the soil at the farm. Can we plant? Can we not plant? Will anybody buy it if we do plant?
In terms of new federal regulations, a bipartisan group of U.S. senators is introducing a bill that will enhance safety procedures for trains carrying hazardous materials, reduce the risk of train wheel-bearing failures, boost maximum fines for wrongdoing, and require at least two-person crews on trains like the one that derailed. The head of the NTSB, who calls this accident 100% preventable, says she looks forward to the CEO of Norfolk Southern testifying before the Senate next week.
I would ask him what would he do differently, and how will he protect this community now that there's been a spill, and how will he protect the workers?
Mike Valerio, Currents News.
In Washington, Attorney General Merrick Garland was grilled on Capitol Hill by Senator Josh Hawley. Things got heated when concerns about anti-Catholic and anti-pro-life bias rhetoric came from the FBI and DOJ were addressed.
Is this how the FBI, under your direction and leadership, is this how they do their intelligence work? They look at left-wing advocacy groups to target Catholics? Is this what's going on? I mean, clearly it is. How is this happening?
The FBI is not targeting Catholics, and as I've said, this is an inappropriate memorandum, and it doesn't reflect the methods that the FBI is supposed to be using. Should not be relying on any single organization without doing its own work.
Let me just ask you, as my time expires here, a very direct question. How many informants do you have in Catholic churches across America?
I don't know, and I don't believe we have any informants aimed at Catholic churches. We have a rule against investigations based on First Amendment.
But apparently on your watch, this Justice Department is targeting Catholics, targeting people of faith, specifically for their faith views.
Senator Hawley added that it's a disgrace people are seemingly being targeted over their faith. There's a lot more news headed your way. We'll head back out to Los Angeles for an update on the memorials for the late Bishop David O'Connell and a Currents News exclusive interview with one of his good friends. Also ahead, the Lenten Pilgrimage continues in the Diocese of Brooklyn. Details on the latest stop. And mid-air scare, when something in an overhead bin goes up in flames. Stay with Currents News. We return to our top story tonight, the funeral services for Los Angeles Auxiliary Bishop David O'Connell. Jessica Easthope is on the scene at the Cathedral of Our Lady of the Angels, surrounded by mourners waiting to get inside to say goodbye to Bishop Dave. Jessica, tell us what's going on behind you.
It's been thousands of people. The line that is now inside the cathedral doors behind me has been consistently long all day. People, as they're walking through the cathedral, have a chance to stop at a picture of Bishop David O'Connell, say a prayer, say their last goodbyes to him. So many people have rosaries in their hands, and this is just a very solemn time. You know, this investigation has left people with more questions than answers, and so as they mourn today and tomorrow, they're hoping that closure will eventually come.
Jess, we can obviously see that Bishop O'Connell was well loved. What stories have mourners been telling you about him?
Yeah, Ed, the stories are honestly endless. People are saying how he was so selfless and giving. They all have a personal story to tell about him, but we're actually hearing about one that some are calling a possible miracle. It was when he was the pastor of St. Michael's Parish in South Central LA, which, as you know, is a notoriously impoverished and violent neighborhood. But his friend Matt Meeks actually said that Bishop Dave might have turned that around for so many people. Take a listen.
He walked the full perimeter of the neighborhood. So not just like the parish property, but the parish zone, you know, like the whole territory of the parish. And he walked it and prayed and consecrated the whole area to St. Michael, who is the patron of the parish. And the story goes that the violence precipitously dropped, like it just dropped after that. And Bishop O'Connell would go out and walk the streets and get to know people.
That's amazing, Jess, and that goes along with everything that we've heard about him being a street priest, being there for the people, and being a peacemaker. Was there a side of Bishop Dave that we don't know about, that you've heard about?
Yeah, and there actually was. Bishop Dave was funny. For every heartfelt and emotional story we're hearing another one about his sense of humor, how he was larger than life, joked and laughed with his parishioners. Some people said they would even forget he was a priest. That's how down to earth he was. And his friend Matt actually said that one time he took his sense of humor to the stage. Take a listen.
He was really genuinely very funny. And it was something that he loved to do. He loved making people laugh. I know he did probably more as a priest than as a bishop, but he would go to the Laugh Factory in Hollywood and do stand up, and nobody knew who he was. You know, he just liked making people laugh.
That's great to hear. Okay, Jess, thanks for checking in, and we'll hear from you again tomorrow.
Thanks, Ed.
And again, Bishop O'Connell's funeral mass will be tomorrow, Friday, March 3rd at 2 p.m. Eastern. Currents News will be streaming that mass live. Just tune in to currentsny.tv. That'll be tomorrow at 2 p.m. Eastern. Michelle Powers and Jessica Easthope will be covering the funeral mass and will have more in-depth reports for us. Tune in to Currents News tomorrow for the latest. Also in the news, there's been a string of incidents concerning air travel in the last few days. And as people watch the problems pile up, flyers are waiting to see what the FAA does next. Ivan Rodriguez has more.
This scattered debris, the aftermath of major turbulence on board a flight from Texas to Germany, resulting in 7 people transported to hospitals and the plane diverted to Virginia. Meanwhile, another flight from Dallas to Orlando diverted to Jacksonville and landed safely after smoke filled the cabin. The Spirit Airlines crew reported a battery in an overhead bin caught fire.
It was a lucky thing we got to it right away. We averted a major problem.
And in Pennsylvania, a suspect making his first appearance in court Thursday, accused of trying to bring explosives in his checked luggage.
The airport process seems to have stood up and worked as intended, which is definitely a good sign.
These air travel disturbances are the latest in what appears to be a growing list of incidents that have left flyers on edge, including 5 near collisions involving commercial planes on U.S. runways this year.
The pilots did a really incredible job. I mean, we came in, it was a scary situation.
President Joe Biden's nominee to lead the FAA, promising to protect air travelers at a confirmation hearing this week.
The safety of the traveling public will remain my top priority.
While the head of the NTSB has called for a safety review.
We have to make sure that our focus is first and foremost on safety. The aviation community and aviation is incredibly safe. We are the gold standard.
Ivan Rodriguez, Currents News.
A tragedy in California. A church is now in shambles after its roof collapsed from the weight of a heavy snow. That is what's left of Calvary Chapel Church. Luckily, no one was hurt. The church's pastor, Daniel Cordova, not only promised to rebuild, but added that as long as parishioners stick together, the idea of the church will always remain standing. Still to come on Currents News, the daughter that disobeyed her father in order to save his life. Plus, the Lenten Pilgrimage continues with the next stop being St. Mark's. Do you have a story idea or want to share a tip? Email us at newstips@thesalesmedia.org or call our 24-hour number 718-517-3122. We'll be right back. The Diocese of Brooklyn's Lenten Pilgrimage is moving on. Today's stop, St. Mark's Church in Sheepshead Bay.
We pray to the Lord.
The day was packed with services for pilgrims to take part in, starting with Mass at 8:30 p.m. with Bishop Robert Brennan, and then including a holy hour for vocations, rosary, chaplet of divine mercy, holy hour for young people, and Eucharistic reposition. In his homily, Bishop Robert Brennan advised those young and old about the importance of having a trusting relationship with Jesus Christ and each other. And it's not too late to sign up for the Lenten Pilgrimage with Bishop Brennan. To learn more and get resources about it, just go to dioceseofbrooklyn.org/Lenten Pilgrimage. How far would you go to help a loved one? For a daughter in Missouri, a limit didn't exist with helping her father's fight against kidney disease, donating the ultimate gift in secret. Andy Madison finds out how a little disobedience saved a life.
I mean, I was upset, but I'm so grateful. I mean, it's just hard to describe.
Hard to describe, but the emotion on John Ivanowski's face says everything.
I can't stop crying.
He goes, I knew you were up to something, and I said, well, I'm always up to something.
That something began brewing in Delaney Ivanowski's mind more than a year ago, after doctors told her father he had an immunoglobulin A deficiency, causing an overactive immune system to attack his kidneys.
From there, it's just been dialysis every couple days since then. So for over a year, he's been hooked up to a machine for 3, 4, 5 hours a day. So then my first thought was, I was like, why can't he just have my kidney right now?
John was against it.
I didn't want her kidney. I'm like, you're too young. You got a long time to be here.
But Delaney had other ideas.
I don't even remember how I got his coordinator's phone number, and I reached out to her and I was like, hey, how can I do this? What can we start? And then as soon as he was good enough basically for the transplant, they started running me through a bunch of tests.
8 months of secrecy.
Oh my God. Are you kidding me?
All leading to this moment on February 16th.
I didn't find out until the day of surgery. After we were post-op, she opened the door and came through, and I was just like, oh my Lord.
A moment tugging at millions of heartstrings after Delaney posted the video on TikTok, asking each of her followers to donate $1 for her family's medical costs.
And I thought, why not reach out to social media? And I got a way bigger response than I ever was expecting to.
Oh, I'm so grateful. Not to be hooked up to the machine anymore and be able to do what I need to do or what I want to do, it's just going to be, it's a big relief.
This father not only relieved, but taking a new lease on life, thanks to his daughter.
It is one of the greatest gifts you can ever give.
Andy Madison, Currents News.
And that is Currents News. I'm Ed Wilkinson, in for Christine Persichetti. Thank you for joining us because we are putting your faith in the news. But before we leave you, we want to show you the services being held in Los Angeles for fallen Auxiliary Bishop David O'Connell, as a community mourns their beloved church leader. Hope to see you again next time.
For our brother and friend, Bishop David O'Connell, faithful servant and priest.
He really showed himself to be a good, tender shepherd.
For you faithful, Lord, life is changed, not ended.
We have to give thanks for his wonderful life and for the legacy and good work here in Los Angeles.